This video took way too long to make. So earlier this month, I hopped on a plane to go visit my family thinking I could fully step away from the internet, have a nice little vacation, and not think about anything to do with YouTube for a few days. Turns out I chose the worst possible time to do that because D23 also happened over the weekend and we got a cavalcade of Disney-related announcements, including our first ever proper look at what Toy Story 5 is going to be about. So naturally, I woke up Saturday morning with my phone blowing up from notifications across YouTube, Twitter, and Discord asking me what my thoughts were about all this. You may recall that I made a video last year, right when the movie first got announced, giving my brief thoughts on the situation, and it was then that I discovered I was pretty much the only person in the world who was even remotely optimistic about this movie. And it seems those feelings have only been amplified as a result of all this new information coming out, because just this one screenshot has massive implications for what direction the story is going to be heading in, and more importantly, how that affects the ending of Toy Story 4. I don't think I've seen even a single person on Twitter say anything in response to this other than, "Why does this exist?" Or, "Why the hell is Woody back?" Or, "Please die in a fire." But as you probably know by this point, I have never been one to let the popular consensus influence my stance on any matter. So, what are my thoughts on all this? Am I still as optimistic as I was last year? How do I feel about the whole toys versus technology aspects they're going for? And what about the implications of Woody being present in Bonnie's room in spite of his final choice at the end of Toy Story 4? I have answers to all of those questions, but they also might not be the ones you're expecting. Also, I was originally just gonna cover the Toy Story 5 stuff since I figured that's what most people would be interested in hearing my thoughts on. Don't know why I thought that. Just, what do you mean it's almost got 1 million views? But there's some other Disney and Pixar related announcements that I also want to briefly touch on, not the least of which includes the confirmation that Incredibles 3 is being developed at Pixar, which... And then at the end, I'll give a very brief update for what's coming next on the channel. If you only want to hear me talk about specific topics, you can, as always, find timestamps in the description for your viewing convenience. But if you're here for the long haul, then strap in tight, because... whoo, boy, do I have some things to say. So, in totality, there wasn't actually that much about Toy Story 5 that was revealed this weekend other than the basic plot and this piece of concept art, which makes sense, seeing as it's still 2 years out. But even with just those two things, there is still a lot to unpack. Hell, even within just this one single image, there's an entire video's worth of things to talk about. But I do want to start off by making the disclaimer that nothing about this is definitive. The plot synopsis, yes, we are now guaranteed to get a movie about the toys having to compete with... iPads, for better or worse. But for the concept art, a lot of times these pieces are made just to have a visual demonstration of what the general idea or feel of a scene or a movie or a character or whatever the filmmakers are going for. And so they will show scenarios that never see the light of day in the finished product, or they'll show scenes that do make it into the film, but which have a very different context. I know I'm showing you a bunch of Halo stuff on screen right now, so let me give you an example from within this very franchise. In the art of Toy Story 4, there's a piece of art that shows both Woody and Buzz walking with Forkface along the road to catch up with the other toys. Because in an earlier version of the movie, they were both supposed to walk into the antique store together and discover this new and dangerous world. Obviously, both these major tentpole scenes made it into the finished film, but Buzz wound up stuck in the RV as a victim of brain hemorrhaging, while Woody was left as the sole guide for Forkface. Because the story had changed between the creation of this concept art and the final version of boards that got sent to animation. So even though it looks like Woody is, in fact, reunited with the other toys in Bonnie's room here, we shouldn't take this as gospel. Whether you are jumping up and down with excitement at the prospect of this ending being reversed and Woody reuniting with everyone, or you're a fan of Toy Story 4 and you're dreading that, nobody should freak out yet because we don't have all the information. Now, that's not to say we can't still speculate about what this image implies. It's only natural to analyze any scraps of information we're given and discuss what the movie might look like, especially because, in this case, the subject of how Woody's character will be handled in Toy Story 5 is the most important thing this movie has to nail. I'm just saying this shouldn't be treated as verifiable proof of anything yet. Now, with all that being said, speculating only based on what this concept art has shown us, it does seem like Woody is going to be back with his friends in Bonnie's room as a part of the gang. And to all the people I've seen on Twitter who are deeply, deeply upset by this image and saying, "How dare Pixar destroy Toy Story 4's ending?" I have just one thing to say.
That's how it feels!
I've waited so long to use this clip and this exact situation. You have no idea how gratifying it feels. I also find it interesting how, even though this is clearly after Toy Story 4, since Forkface is unfortunately still here, Bo is nowhere to be seen. And now that I think about it, neither is his little knife girlfriend from the post-credit scene. I forgot about that until literally this exact second. Again, concept art, she could just be off camera somewhere, but it's really weird to me that they would have thought to include the stupid spork in this image, but not Bo, considering how much they hyped her up last movie, and you'd think they'd consider her a more important character to Toy Story than fucking Forkface. Frankly, even just the idea that Woody might have left her high and dry and made his way back to Bonnie's room alone fills me with so much joy. You can call this wishful thinking, and it could very well be the case that they just didn't want to include her for whatever reason, and she will be a part of the gang in the final movie, but can we at least agree that it's a little weird that they prioritized Forkface over her if she was going to be a major character in Toy Story 5? Especially since if you check the cast list on Letterboxd, it lists Jeff Bergman as the new voice of Mr. Potato Head, despite the character not being in this image, but Annie Potts isn't listed here as being the voice of Bo Peep. I don't know, I just find that strange, that's all. However, despite what you may think, I don't want Toy Story 5 to open up with Woody already back in the room like nothing happened. Even though that would be absolutely hilarious, not only am I extremely confident that Pixar would never blatantly ignore one of their movies in that way, as long as it's not something that left next to no impact on the franchise as a whole and that everyone unanimously dunks on, perhaps a bit excessively, so you can therefore get away with pretending as if it never existed. I wouldn't want them to do that anyway. I am a firm believer that when you're writing a story, you gotta deal with the crap you set up in the last one, no matter how bad it is. I'm not saying you have to stick with it forever, obviously. I don't want them to maintain the status established at the end of Toy Story 4, but you can't just snap your fingers and erase it because that's the coward's way out. Brief spoilers for these things coming up. If you remember, in my first Toy Story 5 video, I cited Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Dual Destinies as a good example of a game that managed to salvage a character and storyline in spite of its abysmal predecessor. However, that does not mean I think they accomplished that objective seamlessly. In fact, I really do not like how the game opens up with Phoenix immediately back to his old self from the original trilogy in Case 1, acting arguably even more frenetic than he used to. The hard 180 on his character was ultimately for the better, of course, but the road to get him there was very sloppy, and I'm not a fan of it. I also absolutely hate how Dial of Destiny opens up with saying, "Oh, you didn't like Crystal Skull? Well, hey, samesies, bro! Guess what? Mutt's dead and Indy and Marion are divorced, lol." That's actually the worst of both worlds, because not only did you just instantly snap away Crystal Skull, but the story you then pivoted to in Dial of Destiny was somehow even worse than that. Now, I understand that some people don't see eye to eye with this mindset. They prefer to just cut the cancer off to preserve the whole, so to say, and don't mind how sloppy or cheap the mechanics are as long as things get back on track eventually. But I'm not one of those people. I don't care how badly they screwed up last time and how much they need to get Woody's character back on track, I still don't want them to just completely abandon the previous story. Obviously, the dream scenario is a straight-up decanonization of Toy Story 4, and then we return to having Toy Story 3 be the definitive finale to the series, but that would never happen in a million years. That is a pipe dream beyond pipe dreams. So if they are going to make a Toy Story 5 and actually carry on with the continuity of Toy Story 4, then they need to figure out a way to work with it. Even if we are actually going down the route of Woody getting back with the other toys, which, to reiterate, is obviously the endgame I want for his character. I want everything that stupid movie stands for to burn in an incinerator forever. I don't want them to take the easy way out. I want them to actually work for their payoffs. I want them to establish logical reasons for why he's back there, and I do not want the reversal to happen out of the gate. I want them to do what Stranger Things Season 4 did, where they spent an entire season working to undo and recontextualize the terrible decisions made in Season 3 into something much, much better. I do not want them to do what Stranger Things Season 2 did, where after Eleven's sacrifice in the Season 1 finale, the next season opens up with, oh, by the way, she's still alive, and there were actually no consequences whatsoever for her actions since she escapes the Upside Down 5 seconds after she gets sent there. Great. Believe it or not, Toy Story 4 understood this. If that movie opened with Woody saying, "Later, bitches," and jumping out Bonnie's window to go explore the world with a completely unrelated cast of characters, characters, everyone would have hated it. Hey, what's that Clementine comic book doing? Pixar understood that when they made the movie, and so they spent the entire runtime desperately trying to emotionally manipulate you into thinking that this actually isn't a complete violation of everything Woody's character stood for. It's all pathetically transparent and entirely unsubstantiated in spite of their many efforts to the contrary, but there was still an effort made. They wanted to change Woody's character from how it was in Toy Story 3, and so they used every trick in the book for 89 minutes straight to try to make you believe that change. Pixar knows that you can't just reverse such a major game-changing story conclusion no matter how badly they clearly want to do exactly that. No matter what, they have to address it. It's too glaring a contradiction for them not to. Even the most casual fans in the world who only watch these movies once in their whole lives are going to see this and go, wait a minute, didn't he go live with Bo in the last one? So, to be completely transparent, will I be happy if Woody goes back to Bonnie? Yes, I think you could have all guessed that. Regardless of the context in the finished film, I will almost certainly walk out of that theater with a smile on my face if Toy Story 4's ending is reversed. But even if I am personally and subjectively satisfied with that, I still have a sense of artistic integrity, and I will be quite disappointed from a basic storytelling perspective if Pixar takes a shortcut to that conclusion and doesn't provide the justification needed for the payoff to be earned. Now, there's also the possibility that Woody won't stay with them at all. It could literally be as simple as the carnival came to Bonnie's town, since we know that it travels all over the country, and Woody decided to drop by, just in time for the evil Buzz Army to show up, which oh my god. No, we'll get to it soon. We'll get to the evil Buzz Army. And then he'll just leave again with the carnival at the end of the movie. But let me ask you something. Do you think Pixar would do that? Do you really think Pixar would do that? Because they've made it pretty clear in the past that they won't make a sequel just for the sake of having another episodic adventure. Even if they have to obliterate the previous movies to do it, even if they have to regress everyone's character arcs and undermine their achievements so they can have a conflict, Pixar's sequels are still always working to change the state of the world in some meaningful way by the end. They aren't interested in making movies like Despicable Me 4, which are just vapid, meaningless, and directionless films that have no greater purpose other than to make money and, for some people, provide mindless fun. Which is fine. No judgment if you enjoy that sort of thing, but that's not what Pixar does. I really don't see them writing a story that ends with Woody and Bo returning with the carnival and saying goodbye to Buzz and the gang again, because it would either be repeating the exact same scene we already saw and wanted to break something while watching, or it would be missing that deeper elements that got us Toy Story 4's ending to begin with.
We didn't have that ending right out the gate. That was something that evolved over time.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. We didn't have it. It didn't feel like the movie was... It just felt like another adventure. It didn't feel like there was any emotional depth to it.
And the best way to make Toy Story 5 feel like just another adventure, which I'm pretty sure they don't want to do, would be to keep everything the same as how it was in the fourth movie. That doesn't mean Woody will definitely return to Bonnie. Something else might happen that makes things even better, or even worse. But I think at the very least, Woody continuing to be a lost toy is looking extremely unlikely based on the information we have. As I say that, though, this has opened the door to another possibility that is somewhat concerning. The idea that, because screens are going to be the big bad this time, the ultimate bittersweet note to end the Toy Story franchise on will be that kids around the world have outgrown their toys and care more about iPads and video games than playing with real toys, and so then all the toys leave Bonnie and wander the world as lost toys for infinity and beyond. It would certainly go a step past Toy Story 4, which again is something Pixar is concerned with.
I think this is the only way you can go another step past Toy Story 3.
But it would also be an even bigger slap to the face than Toy Story 4 and would also undermine everything again! That would fall into the category of comical and extreme scenarios that I highly doubt would happen, which I talked about in my last video about Toy Story 5, as exceptions to my belief that things can't get worse than they were in Toy Story 4. Because I truly do believe that Toy Story 5 can't be worse within the bounds of reason. Woody could still become a serial killer, or it could be revealed that this isn't actually our Woody at all, and just like the MCU does, they just miraculously found another rare Sheriff Woody doll, perhaps to replace the one we know and love after Bonnie realized he abandoned her, so they can still say Woody's in this movie, and they can plaster his face all over the marketing without technically trampling over Toy Story 4's ending. But realistically speaking, things like that, and the idea of every single one of Bonnie's toys abandoning her seems so unlikely that I don't think we have the grounds to assume that would happen just yet. Which I guess brings us to the last big thing about Toy Story 5 we've yet to cover, the actual plot synopsis. According to Letterboxd, it reads, Buzz, Woody, Jesse, and the rest of the gang's jobs get exponentially harder when they go head-to-head with this all-new threat to playtime, tech. So, to be completely honest, my immediate guttural reaction to this was, because my memory might be failing me here, but I was under the impression that we, as humans, already went through this character arc like a decade ago. Didn't we already do the whole screen's bad, video games bad?
Have you ever thought about how they're called cell phones because people are prisoners of their phones?
Thing? Like, why are we doing this again? Just on principle, I want to reject this lame notion of technology and iPads being the new big existential threat for the toys to face. I have seen some people say that they're just retreading the path of Toy Story That Time Forgot, where Bonnie got distracted by Mason's Optimum X thing, but then ultimately showed him the magic of real toys, but honestly, I don't think so. They flirted with the concept in that TV special, but there wasn't any actual commentary on the nature of how technology impacts kids.
I guess we're not getting played with after all.
Well, who could blame her? No one could resist an Optimum X.
You could have swapped out this thing for a paddle ball and it would have changed literally nothing about the overall story. The main focus of that special was on the battle sores and redoing Buzz's character arc, but much faster and much worse. I think a more apt comparison for this would either be the first or third movies, because those seem to be much more in line with the direction this story is going. Just combine Andy got a new Buzz Lightyear for his birthday, and Andy's outgrown his toys, into Bonnie got an iPad for Christmas and has also outgrown her toys. That's not to say Toy Story 5 can't do anything new or interesting with these concepts, even if it does bear resemblance to previous movies. Just as you won't see me saying that Toy Story 3 is merely a cheap rehash of Toy Story 2 solely because of some surface level similarities when ultimately the overarching stories of the two movies are very distinct from one another. I just hope that whatever story they have in mind and whatever message they want to send is a hell of a lot more nuanced and mature than technology bad, toys good, screens make brains go mush mush, because that would be lame and depressing and probably make me very angry, and I don't want to be very angry, so what if we just don't? Also, it would be quite hypocritical for a studio founded by the person who created Apple products to suddenly start preaching to me about how iPads are ruining the new generation of kids. I will say, though, this has kinda happened before. When Toy Story 4's first teaser came out and we all saw this abomination, things were looking pretty grim. I was immediately very concerned about how this would impact the world building of Toy Story and whether they'd even bother trying to explain it, which they didn't, as well as whether the story would be as dull and boring as Bonnie made a spork into a toy and it's her new favorite thing in the whole wide world, and oh my god, would you look at that, it flew right out the window, what a shame.
There's deja vu.
Because even though Forkface's presence in this film did end up being just as agonizingly stupid as we thought, if not more so, there was more to the story of Toy Story 4 than just him. In fact, Forkface ended up being nothing more than a plot device for most of the movie. What the story was really about was somehow even more infuriatingly bad, but my point is that there was more going on here than just, funny Spork has an existential crisis that's over in 5 minutes. There was an attempt to send a message here beyond what was apparent on the surface level from early promotional material. I wasn't old enough at the time to be privy to any of this discourse, but I am certain that there were people who saw the trailer for Toy Story 3 and thought, wow, so they just get dumped in a daycare and then they have to escape? How compelling. Only for the movie to actually come out and for those expectations to get utterly bulldozed as we saw the profoundly meaningful and emotionally devastating story waiting for us underneath that prison break exterior. So that could very well be the case for Toy Story 5 as well, in spite of how off-putting this concept is. And you can call me naive if you want, but considering Andrew Stanton is directing, and considering his track record during his time at Pixar, I want to believe that he has a more mature and complex story in mind that he wants to tell than just screens bad. There's too much pressure on Pixar for that not to be the case, because for as bad as Toy Story 4 was, the general public still adores it, and the series as a whole is regarded as being among the best in animation history that somehow still has a flawless track record, and has continued to expand its deep thematic roots ever since the very first entry. They'd never be able to get away with anything less than that, and there are nuanced ways to tell this story. Remember that scene from Incredibles 2 where Helen is searching for the Screenslaver? The Screenslaver herself may be a horrifically written villain that breaks almost the whole movie, but this one scene in isolation is genuinely great in how the monologue you're listening to is all about how we're so distracted by our screens that we miss the more important and valuable things happening right in front of us. And as this speech is being delivered, you're so distracted by the gracefulness of Helen's movement through the city and the striking cinematography that you're seeing on the screen that you don't even really absorb what the Screenslaver is telling you, which is exactly what he's trying to warn everyone about. If you want to hear me go a bit more in depth with this scene, and Incredibles 2 as a whole, you can check out my series about it up there. It's genuinely an incredibly smart scene in an otherwise terrible movie in how it gets its point across, and fundamentally, I do believe there is some truth to the point the movie was trying to make here. You can explore the harmful effects that technology and the internet can have without creating a straw man or ignoring the positives that come along with it. I think the idea can work if Andrew Stanton leads into something like what Brad Bird was trying to do with Incredibles 2, and he doesn't try to make Screenagers 2 instead. Hey, was anyone else forced to watch that bullshit in high school, or was it just me? Anyway, yeah, I think there is some potential to the screens idea. I do not feel that way about the army of evil buzzes, because literally what? Are you kidding me? Look at this image. Look at it. This just looks like some horrific fanfiction idea, and even that is insulting to fanfiction writers. This is the type of thing that I'd make up if I were intentionally trying to pitch a bad version of Toy Story 5. Like, hey, wouldn't it be really funny if there was just a massive armada of evil Buzz Lightyear toys that wanted to kill everyone? I don't look at this image and feel terror. I look at this image and have to restrain myself from doubling over laughing. But then I also get kind of depressed because it reminds me of this idea that I heard from some people that Pixar doesn't really know what to do with Buzz's character after the first movie, which I've always found to be extremely silly because if you remove Buzz from Toy Story 2, that whole movie doesn't happen. Of course, we all know this, but he leads the team that ultimately rescues Woody, and this is probably his strongest film as far as demonstrating his intelligence, problem solving, and improvisational skills. Not to mention that they get to play a Buzz who's resolved his existential crisis off of a Buzz who still thinks he's a space ranger to brilliant comedic effect. And then, for as much as the Buzz we know and love is taken out of Toy Story 3 for a good chunk of it, they still at least use the character in a way that's thematically suitable for the story, which is something that I'll talk a little bit more about when I make my Toy Story 3 praise video. So given how well Buzz was handled in 2 and 3, I never bought the idea that Pixar wrote a really strong and compelling character arc for Buzz in the first movie, and then just flailed their arms uncontrollably when writing the sequels. But now, after looking at Toy Story 4 and 5, I'm kind of starting to doubt that belief. I am legitimately beginning to think that Pixar just fundamentally does not understand why people are drawn to Buzz as a character, and then they just got incredibly lucky with their first 2 outings. Because they brought back a version of Space Ranger Buzz in the first 2 sequels, they redid his arc from the first movie with a completely different character in Toy Story That Time Forgot, and then they also redid the storyline of Buzz getting swapped for a different Buzz in Small Fry, and then, as I've gone over a million times by now, Buzz was completely assassinated in Toy Story 4, and his intelligence is stripped away in favor of reducing him to this one joke of, Buzz is really dumb, and he needs to push his buttons over and over again, all of which conveniently bail him out of every single situation until magically they don't anymore. And now, in Toy Story 5, they're just like, what if we just had an army of evil Buzzes who still don't know their toys? People really like seeing that happen over and over and over and over and over again, right? Also, it went really well the last time we had an evil Buzz character, right guys? Of course, this doesn't show us anything about how our Buzz will be portrayed, and I am still holding out hope that they're gonna abandon the stupid inner voice nonsense and actually allow him to be a smart character again. But seeing this stupid fucking screenshot just makes me really nervous about where their head's at for Buzz as a character, because it's not just evil Buzz Lightyear toys, which we've already done. Listen specifically to what Andrew Stanton says about this plot point.
There's a little issue involving 50 rogue commemorative Buzz Lightyear action figures stuck in toy mode.
They're just, they're doing it again! They're actually doing it again.
I can't believe this. That's the fifth time.
I swear to God, if our Buzz gets switched back to his factory settings at any point in this movie, I'm actually going to scream. I can't take it anymore. Now, obviously, the big red light on their chest gives the impression that it's going to be more than just the fact that they're stuck in toy mode. But can we please just stop doing this? It was perfect in Toy Story 2, and Toy Story 3 still used it to great effect. No more. Enough. Leave it alone. Do something else with Buzz, I beg you.
Thanks, inner voice.
No, not that something else. Something that isn't dumb as shit would be nice.
Buzz, what are you doing?
I'm thinking.
Also, my mind is just racing with questions looking at this. Are all 50 of these things going to invade Bonnie's house at once, or is this going to be the B plot where they're all spread out throughout the Tri-County area and a second group of toys has to deal with them while the main plot is focused on Bonnie and her screens? I don't know, but I'm getting very, very bad vibes from this image. Oh hey, while I'm venting about stuff, what the fuck is this supposed to be? What do you want me to say about this? It's nothing. It's actually just nothing. I know, it's just a silly little 30-second teaser to go along with D23 for people who don't voraciously devour Pixar news all day and who missed the announcement last year. But like, seriously, did you even try with this? Actually, I know the answer to that question, and the answer is no, because it's just the alien lifting the screen with the claw trick we've seen a million times before, followed by character animations that they literally just copy and pasted from the Apple Watch face thing. But you know, screen's bad, right guys? It just feels so awkward. They all just stand there like turkeys and then run up one by one to get way too goddamn close to you and smash their face against the watch, I mean camera. It feels so stilted. It's like they're robots waiting for their programming to tell them to move forward. Or like a much worse version of the intro to the Backyardigans.
Hi, I'm Pablo. I'm Uniqua.
They don't even have idle animations. Like, really look at this teaser. They are not moving. They just froze the first frame of their animation. They're just JPEGs sitting there. It's so awkward. What the fuck is this? Sorry, rant over. It's a dumb, pointless teaser. It means nothing. It's not a slight against the movie. It's just really, really funny, and I wanted to vent about it for a second. Okay, and that's a wrap on all the Toy Story 5 stuff. We probably won't hear anything else about it for another year or so, since the first proper teaser trailer doesn't usually come out for a new Pixar movie until the fall before the film's release. So this'll be it for Toy Story 5 for a while. In conclusion, I remain cautiously optimistic that Pixar will do something interesting with the technology aspect of the story, and am tantalized by the prospect of Woody returning to Bonnie, or something equally satisfying happening that undoes Toy Story 4, but I do not want them to resort to lazy writing choices to do that as fast as possible, and I am extremely concerned about the army of Buzzes. Honestly, though, even if the Buzz army ends up being the goofiest thing in the world, I am still extremely doubtful that they will reach lower lows in the last movie. There are ways they could do it, and I've touched on a few of them today, but I still don't think that they are realistic expectations. Now, before I go, I do want to take a little bit of time to talk about some of the other announcements that came out of D23. First, let's talk about the elephant in the room. You know, I feel like I might have had something to say about this at the end of my Incredibles 2 series. What was it again? Honestly, even if I end up being wrong and one day Pixar suddenly announces plans to continue their adventures, I'm not so sure if I'd actually want that anymore. If you had asked me a decade ago, I'd have said yes to that idea in a heartbeat. But now, after seeing what's become of Pixar, after seeing how low their bar of quality has fallen, seeing their most talented creative minds leave, and seeing the profit-driven decisions they're making without a care in the world for how the end product actually turns out, at this point, I just want them to keep their grubby hands off their classic characters for the rest of time. Oh yeah, that. Well, I wasn't lying when I said that. I fully meant it. I very much did not want an Incredibles 3 after seeing Pixar's recent attempts at continuing their established IPs. Incredibles 2, Toy Story 4, Cars on the Road, and Lightyear all told me that modern Pixar was not to be trusted with beloved franchises and they should just stay away from them and go back to making originals for us to fall in love with. But recently, that sentiment has started to change for the better because we've gotten Monsters at Work and Inside Out 2, which are not only both extremely respectful to their predecessors, but actually continue to explore the themes and world building in new and interesting ways. Of course, I had already seen season 1 of Monsters at Work when I made my Incredibles 2 series, and I did talk about that in the video, but I also said that was the exception in a sea of sewage. But we're 2 seasons into the show now, and the quality hasn't dropped, and we've also gotten Inside Out 2, which was a million times better than anyone was expecting, so I'm a lot more confident in their ability to handle sequels now than I was 2 years ago. Wait, how has it already been almost 2 years since I made those videos? What the hell happened? Oh, by the way, I've seen all your comments asking me what I think about Inside Out 2. Short version, it was phenomenal. I absolutely loved everything about that movie. I've seen it twice in theaters, and the more I've thought about it since then, I've somehow come to appreciate it even more. And the only reason I haven't made a video about it is because a movie this amazing doesn't deserve to be wasted on a quick out-of-the-theater first impressions video like I made last year for Elemental. If I cover it on the channel, and I'm emphasizing if, it would be in the form of a full breakdown, because there's so much to talk about for how amazingly well made and respectful it is. And I still can't decide whether it's better than the original or not. So please go see Inside Out 2 while it's still in theaters so we can knock that piece of shit Lion King 2019 off its miserable throne. Literally piece of shit Lion King 2019. Anyway, Incredibles 3. So on principle, I'm much more open to the idea of an Incredibles 3 than I was 2 years ago. I don't inherently hate this announcement, but I also have no real thoughts on it beyond that because we know nothing more about it. Is it gonna have a time skip where the kids are older and can contribute more to the fights, or is it gonna be around the same time frame? On the one hand, I would hope that there's a time skip so they don't have to drag 80-year-old Craig T. Nelson into the recording booth to play a 40-year-old character, but on the other hand, Incredibles 2 robbed us of the movie we were supposed to get where the family actually fights crime together instead of whatever the hell this was, so it'd be nice if we could actually get that this time. Honestly, I don't know what I would want to see out of an Incredibles 3. As long as they don't do what they did last time and try to copy the structure of the first movie with a different lead character which results in half of the family being left to do nothing of value for almost all of it. And as long as Brad Bird is given the time he needs to make this film amazing, because we know he's capable of creating amazing things if he doesn't lose a year of production time because of Toy Story 4. I still have faith in his storytelling skills. We don't talk about Tomorrowland. I guess the big takeaway here is that I'm not repulsed by an Incredibles 3 like I would have been if this happened at 2022's D23, but we have to wait for more details before I have any stronger positions. Okay. Those are the big two I imagine people wanted to hear about, and this video is already way longer than I wanted it to be, so let me just machine gun through a few other things shown off at D23. I'm legitimately kinda excited about Moana 2. The first movie left itself very open to a sequel, and I did really love that first one, so I'm looking forward to see what they do with it. Kinda the same thing with Zootopia 2. I say kinda because I've fallen out of love with the first movie as the years have gone on, and I've thought more about the integrity of the story and the characters. But as far as potential for a sequel, they could easily come up with a new caper for Nick and Judy to solve, even if I'm not personally as jazzed about seeing more of this world. Frozen 3, literally whatever. They could cancel this movie tomorrow, or they can announce 17 more of them, and it wouldn't affect me at all. I like the first movie, but I'm really not that invested in the series. Mufasa can go die in a hole. I don't want it, you don't want it, nobody wants this movie, but we voted for it with our wallets, and now we have to deal with the consequences. So let's not make the same mistake this time, yeah? Don't go see this movie. Please don't. I'm not going to watch it. I'm not even gonna make a video about it or record a commentary for it, and you can hold me to that. I'm not doing it. I just can't be bothered. I could not possibly care less about it, actually. It'd be a total waste of my time. Please do not let this cross $1 billion again. Go see Sonic 3 instead. I can't believe we're losing out on Lin-Manuel Miranda returning from Moana 2 because he pledged his allegiance to yet another hyper-realistic Disney remake. Why do you keep doing this? Why do you keep hitching your wagon to things like this and the fucking Little Mermaid remake?
Remember the swamp, remember my song in the swamp when I was like,
why do you do this to me, Lin? Why?
Huh? La Krista!
Kill it with fire. How do you feel about the Lilo and Stitch remake?
Cry, I'm not gonna lie. The original has such charm, and I don't get charm from that.
No? Really? But didn't you see the Snow White trailer? That looked really I can't. No, I can't even.
My god.
Hey, me personally, I'm really excited to see CGI dwarf abominations in Snow White.
Kill me. Kill me. I don't. No.
For what it's worth, though, no, this is not anywhere near as bad as Ugly Sonic, and I'm frankly shocked that people are saying it is. Did we forget just how hideous this was? Like, yeah, it's bad, and it makes me want to bleach my eyes out, but it's not that bad. Okay, back to Pixar stuff. Dream Productions looks like it could be interesting. I'm not sure if it's going to be an anthology of shorts like Baymax or Zootopia Plus, or if it's going to be a proper story-driven series like Monsters at Work. I don't think it's been confirmed. Someone can tell me in the comments if it has, but either way, it could work. If it's the former, they could have each episode be one of Riley's dreams and then have Fear give more of his biting commentary like he did in the first movie. Or they could show some of the behind-the-scenes drama that goes on during the production of the shorts and maybe shed a little more light on the world building of what life is like for the people outside of headquarters in Riley's mind. Either way, I'm game. And Hoppers is something that I need to know a lot more about before I pass judgment on. And honestly, kind of the same for Win or Lose. I've had a very similar experience with a lot of Pixar movies where the concept or trailer doesn't look that interesting to me, but then I see the movie itself and it completely blows me away. That happened with Coco, believe it or not. I really didn't care that much for the trailer when it came out, and the only thing that sold me on it was the simple fact that Lee Unkrich was directing it. But then I actually saw it and I was left bawling my eyes out by the time the credits rolled, and it quickly became one of my all-time favorite movies. So even though, for the moment, all I have to say is that a girl swaps with a beaver and infiltrates their animal kingdom, and a baseball team prepares for a big game with different perspectives and visualization of their insecurities doesn't sound very enticing to me, I've come to learn that there's always something else going on beneath the surface with Pixar's movies, and I think that's a big reason why I always keep coming back to them every year, no matter how badly they screwed up last time. And with that, we have come to the end of all the D23 announcements that I care to talk about. Definitely a lot more off the cuff and rushed than my bigger series, but I wanted to get this out for everyone who was asking me what I thought about all this stuff as quickly as I physically could. I was literally writing an outline for the script of this video on my plane ride home and hit the ground running with recording pretty much as soon as I got home from the airport. So it's definitely not as polished or in-depth as I usually like to be, but hopefully you still enjoyed listening to me talk about everything. Also, thank you to Gugonic for helping push this video over the finish line by editing the Lilo and Stitch section and filling in some gaps for the Mufasa section. Confession time, I've never seen Lilo and Stitch, so I never would have been able to complete the editing for that section without his help. Your assistance is, as always, very much appreciated. And be sure to let me know how you feel about everything we've discussed today in the comments, because I get the sense that I'm in the minority with a lot of my feelings about Toy Story 5 especially. But that'll be all for now. Hey, maybe next time when the Toy Story 5 teaser drops, I won't be on vacation. Wouldn't that be great? Now for that quick channel update that I promised you at the beginning of this video. I'll just cut right to the chase. The next big project that I'm working on is a love letter to Toy Story 3 because A, judging by the comments on my Owl House video, that seemed to be what most people are interested in, and B, I just really want to make it. I know people want to hear me rip apart Lightyear and Ralph Breaks the Internet, and admittedly, I do have a newfound fire in my heart to do that second one because I actually very recently rewatched Wreck-It Ralph, and man, that movie is just so good, and they ruined all of it with this absolute trash fire. But in all honesty, making my Owl House video was infinitely more creatively satisfying to me than any of my destroyed everything style rant videos I've made over the years. So I wanted to keep that momentum rolling by making a video entirely dedicated to praising my favorite movie of all time. The next question will obviously be, when will it be released? How much progress have you made? And things of that nature. Well, currently I have a finished script clocking in at 129 pages and 68,273 words. I've been redrafting it all summer long to make sure it's as polished and airtight as it can be, and now I'm in the process of recording my commentary for it one piece at a time. As for a timeline, again, I'm not going to give estimated release dates for my videos anymore because so many things can happen during the production process that affect my ability to get work done, and I either end up disappointing people if I can't make the original release date work, or pushing myself to the limit with how many all-nighters I pull to try to meet an arbitrary deadline. So I'm just gonna keep working on it day in and day out, and it will be released when it's ready. It would be nice if I could get it done before the end of the year, but I'm certainly not gonna promise that, especially when copyright is a thing. Isn't that so much fun to deal with? So if you want to keep up to date with my progress, you can join my community Discord in the description, where I will occasionally post progress reports for how videos are going. The best I can do for the moment is say that it definitely won't be released in the near future because I haven't even started editing yet and I'm still at the recording stage. There might also be some commentary sprinkled in here and there in the meantime, but there won't be another big video released for a few months. There was a point in time when I tried to do monthly releases. I thought I could be some indomitable editing beast who worked like a machine around the clock to keep up a regular stream of content, but that's just not how I'm meant to work. I believe I'm at my best when I put all my eggs into one huge basket for a while, when I can take a month to let a script simmer in the oven before coming back with fresh eyes to redraft it, and just generally spend a lot of time polishing something up even if it takes forever, and not when I try to micromanage a million different projects all at once for the sake of constantly releasing new stuff. That's why my Owl House video turned out so well, because I spent a year of my life pretty much exclusively focused on that, and only sidetracking occasionally to rant about new theatrical releases and make me want to commit die. So that's gonna be my mindset moving forward. Rather than trying to keep up an arbitrary release schedule, I'm just gonna spend as much time as I feel is necessary making a big video, and then release it when I've ironed it out to my satisfaction. Hey, speaking of which, earlier this year I made a big 8-hour video on a really awesome animated show that managed to somehow find its way to several of the show's crew members, including some who I can't show here, and have earned their seal of approval. I even had the chance to meet up with some of them a few months ago along with some other Owl House YouTubers, and I continue to struggle with processing the ways in which making that video has affected my life. It is the best thing I ever have, and probably ever will make on the channel, so even if you think you have no interest whatsoever in the Owl House, please consider giving it a watch. It'll be linked in a card and in the description along with all my other analysis projects. And finally, that is where I'm going to end things for today. Thank you all for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed. Consider checking out my other stuff if you're new and like what you've seen here today, and I hope to see you all soon for whatever it is you decide to watch next. Also, go watch Hazbin Hotel because I love it and it healed my soul. Also, please go see Inside Out 2 in theaters. Already seen it? Too bad. Go see it again. I need Lion King 2019 to lose that title of #1 animated movie so badly you have no fucking idea. Okay, thanks. Bye!
So I follow Ki Kwai Kwan on Instagram, and I saw him post about Indiana Jones, and for a hot second I thought he was talking about a new movie, but he was actually just talking about a ride, and I was like,
Harrison Ford will be dead by the time they decide they want to make another one.
I think Harrison Ford wants to make another one.
I'm surprised he wanted to make a 5th one.
He got connived, entangled, whatever you want to say.
He got conned? Is that what you're looking for? He got conned?
Yeah, he got conned.
They scammed him with the promise of a good movie. Did you see the are you excited for the army of evil buzzes in Toy Story 5?
Didn't they already use this?
Yes.
Did they already use this story thread?
Look at this image. Look at this fucking...
I'm looking at this image. I don't like this image.
Does anyone like... Why would you do this? What are you doing?
Didn't you already tread over this plot line?
They already did this like 4 times. It's so... I'm over it. I'm over... fucking evil.
How many times can you use evil buzz? A lot, apparently.
Too many. They've too fucking many. But I'm sure it'll be great.